Order. I call Gareth Snell to move the motion, and then I'll call the Minister to respond. There won't be an opportunity for the member in charge to wind up, as is the convention, for 30-minute debates. Gareth Snell to move the motion.
Thank you very much, Dame Caroline. It's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship. And thank you to my honourable friends for joining me in today, which I hope will be by the sounds of it, a much more better-tempered debate than the one you've just officiated over. Dame Caroline, Stoke-on-Trent is the crucible of creativity. We were at the forefront of the last industrial revolution, and we are now quietly and diligently leading our very own creative renaissance in the city and surrounding area. Indeed, the last measurement suggested that growth in our creative industry stood at around 6.3%, which is in no small part down to the determination of a number of organisations who, with your indulgence and with the indulgence of the members present, I would like to take a short canter through this morning of an A to Z of the cultural organisations and institutions in Stoke-on-Trent that are doing so much excellent work. I want to start with Appetite, who is a public arts organisation who have been demonstrating to communities across North Staffordshire that public art is available to everybody, demonstrating the joy that can be available from interaction and involvement in art in a way that normally wouldn't have been available to some communities even down to sort of 10 years ago. B Arts is a wonderful participatory arts organisation who currently have their bread in common shop on the bottom of Hartshill Road in my constituency, where they have fused creativity with a burning passion for food justice. We are also home to some incredibly well-placed and innovative business organisations. Cast Waterman, a Stoke-based animation company, are doing world-leading work, all from a converted bank in Stoke High Street. And members present will have noticed the change to some of the design work on the crockery and tableware in members' dining room, which has all come from Duchess China in Stoke-on-Trent, where they have used where they are still manufacturing to high-grade bone china techniques, and they do so with a flair. And on the ceramics front, we still have Emma Bailey active in Stoke-on-Trent. She is one of the most beautiful designers who is using her talent for creativity and art to keep alive the spirit and the patterns of Clarice Cliff, who, of course, was one of the city's best-known residents. But alongside these well-known names, we also have a growing group of freelancers who, and I will talk to the Minister later about this, who are indulging the opportunity to turn their creative ability into a viable income. We have a network of individuals who see creativity as a path for their own determination, their own success and their own fulfilment, and we need a little bit of help just to make sure that that can come to fruition. Yes, I'm happy to give way to the gentleman.
Can I commend the Honourable Gentleman for Stoke-on-Trent for bringing this forward, and also can I say what a pleasure it is to see him back in the House once again, and thank you for his contribution. Equally, the Honourable Gentleman has outlined what is happening in Stoke, the same issues across Northern Ireland, and my constituency are the same. Some £1 billion for the economy, 5% of the entire workforce, 29,000 jobs, the AFC estimate. In my town of Newton, Ards, action has been taken in terms of controlled graffiti, as it costs the council and the Northern Ireland Heritage Executive money to cover up illegal graffiti. When it comes to creative industries, this is the point I want to make, because the Honourable Gentleman has made the same point. Within that, there's a company that has come up with the real opportunity for the creative sector in terms of possibly employing students from local colleges to partake in this. That's the issue of illegal graffiti. Does the Honourable Gentleman feel that that's one of the things that the creative industries can do? Many things outside of the creative industry, but to help practically in all communities.
I thank the Honourable Gentleman and my friend for that intervention. He's absolutely right. With the right structure, creativity and public art can go a long way to helping reduce some of those structural problems that we see in our communities, whether that be antisocial behaviour, whether that be derelict buildings. And if he would ever like to come and join us for a tour around Stoke-on-Trent, I can show him some of the wonderful public art, and particularly some of the murals that we have on our buildings, which tell the story of the city that we are, but also do so much to brighten up the place in a vibrant and succinct way. Now, Dame Caroline, I think I got to G, so I'm going to talk about the Great Pottery Throwdown, a wonderful a demonstration of the heritage skills that we have in Stoke-on-Trent, but also a demonstration that you can make blockbuster television right in Stoke-on-Trent, and we're really privileged that that's done at Gladstone Museum, which was also the set for the Colour Room, a wonderful sky adaptation of the life of Clarice Cliff, again demonstrating that with the right imagination anything is possible in Stoke. And that right imagination is what's allowed us to take some of our heritage buildings back into use. So the Spode site in the middle of Stoke town is becoming a createch hub, a place where creative industries and organisations are coming together to work together, to share their ideas and their aspirations, but also put their creative skills into use. And that's producing this little microcosm of energy and ideas which is having real dividends to those organisations, particularly as they now have a shared apprenticeship scheme that allows individuals from Staffordshire University to see different areas of the creative industries that could be available to them once they graduate. And one of those organisations is I Create, run by the wonderful Andy Jackson, who does so much work in terms of community news, but also helping organisations tell a better story about who they are. And just down the road from Andy's I Create, we've got Junction 15, which is technically in the constituency of my honourable friend from Newcastle-under-Lyme, but you know, we're one big happy North Staffordshire family at the moment. One of their directors won an Emmy for the work that they did in the 2008 opening work at the Beijing Olympics. Again, another wonderful... Sorry, the Minister is correcting me, not for the first time, but I'll save his speech till later. And of course, we're very fortunate in North Staffordshire that underpinning this creative industry are two wonderful universities. Keele University bringing on next year a music production, game design and digital media course, because they realise that growing a pipeline of local talent is really important for growing that local creative industry. And one of those companies that is looking for that particular pipeline is Lesniak Swan, who are an award-winning B2B marketing organisation. Now, they've particularly asked me to point out that for creative industry, it is also one of our best export markets, because the work that we do in the UK is highly desirable to organisations around the world. So Lesniak Swan do wonderful B2B marketing work, incredibly creative work, all from Stoke-on-Trent, but for companies based in Norway and America. And I think we need to think about where our creative industries can contribute to our UK exports. And of course, all of this is Made in Stoke, and Made in Stoke is a network that now exists of entrepreneurs, philanthropists, individuals that have a connection to our city who want to come together to make it better. And one of the strands they're looking at is how individuals who have gone away from Stoke-on-Trent but have done wonderful things in arts, culture and creativity can come back to the city to help inspire that next generation of new and aspiring creatives. And if they do come to Stoke, one of the best places they can visit is the New Vic Theatre, a purpose-built theatre in the round, again, just over the border in my honourable friend from Newcastle's constituency, but again, one big happy North Staffordshire family. But the work that they do isn't just about award-winning productions on stage that often come down to London for the West End, but also their outreach work through borderlines, using creativity and culture as a way of tackling community cohesion issues and prejudices in communities through art, through drama, through music. And what they've been able to do, both as a theatre and as a piece of outreach work, is demonstrate that even some of the toughest communities where culture and creativity may not have been something they thought about immediately, there is a role for them if they want to be involved in it.
Will my honourable friend give way, and I congratulate him both on skewing this debate and for acknowledging the wonder that is North Staffordshire, and not least for acknowledging the brilliant work that takes place at the New Vic Theatre in Newcastle-under-Lyme, although not too far away from the Stoke Central border. And through my honourable friend from Stoke-on-Trent Central, I wonder if I could extend an invitation to the Minister to come and see the wonderful New Vic, the great work they do in the community, for himself.
I mean, my honourable friend has stolen my thunder of the invitations I'm going to offer the Minister at the end of my speech. But
pretty close. You
but
can do
again,
both in one day.
Yeah. But the New Vic is wonderful, and actually with a creative boundary view, one day it might actually be in Stoke-on-Trent Central, but that's for another debate, I think.
You can dream.
Yeah. And of course, Stoke-on-Trent, our wonderful creative heritage, has produced an Oscar winner, Rachel Shenton, who is currently gracing our screens on All Creatures Great and Small. It has demonstrated that being from Stoke-on-Trent is not a barrier to creative success. It is not something that should hold you back. And in fact, the work that she does coming back to the city to talk to young people about the potential for creative careers, whether that be in acting, in theatre, is something that I'm very grateful for. Because that learning process through creativity is something that I think we could all learn from across the country, and that's why I'm really glad that in my constituency I have a group called Popcorn Learning, who are using digital design, animation to create really high-spec training and learning videos that go around schools across the country, working with some big-name organisations in the country to create those in-house opportunities. And again, this is all things that thousands and thousands of people will see day in, day out, all made in Stoke-on-Trent, all made from a lovely small unit in Stoke-on-Trent with people who are incredibly dedicated to their craft. I know the Minister will be thinking, what more questions are there? And that's the only way I could fit a queue into this particular alphabet soup. But he will know that, that there are lots of questions I can put to him at the end. But one of the things I want to tell him about first is Stoke, which is a civics arts organisation that have been using art and culture, again, to engage some of our most disengaged communities. And their recent production of The Lotus Eaters that was work done in collaboration with the National Theatre that saw people from Stoke-on-Trent come down to London and perform theatrics and creative industry work in the National Theatre. And again, that is something that people don't too often associate with Stoke-on-Trent when they think about what we are and what we do. And there is so much going on, Dame Caroline, that one of the organisations that is now taking a lead in trying to pull this together is Stoke Create, one run by the wonderful Susan Clark. It's a cultural compact that is basically sitting in the middle of a sector and thinking, what can we do to bring organisations together? Because one of the challenges we have in North Staffordshire is that splendid isolationism in which people operate. And Stoke Creates is teasing out the different aspects of what we can achieve and how we can achieve it, and making the case and the argument that if you want to do culture and creative industries well, you can find far fewer places, better place to do it than Stoke-on-Trent. And that was demonstrated recently by a completely different exhibition, but Stoke on Clay, run by a gentleman called Simon, and it brought together new ceramic artists for a wonderful display of the material and creativity and how we can rethink the material that my city is so synonymous with. And that again was a wonderful exhibition at the Old Spode Museum, bringing together the old and the new and demonstrating that what was our past, or was our heritage, is also our future. And across North Staffordshire, we are blessed with some wonderful theatre companies, and one I just want to give a nod to is the Claybody Theatre, run by Deborah Cowdery and Conrad Nelson. And I want to particularly mention the work that they do, because the Claybody Theatre has started to think about the story of who we are in Stoke-on-Trent, started to think about what makes us who we are, and then write plays about that so that we can tell our story better. Because one of our challenges has always been, how do we tell our story and how do we do it in a way that is engaging? So Bright Lights Over Bentley is currently a play that they have put together, being shown at the Dipping House in Stoke-on-Trent, that talks about the very bizarre arrangements of UFO sightings that happened over one of the largest council estates in my constituency. A story which in any other circumstances would be unbelievable, but they have translated it into this wonderful piece of theatre, and for that I am grateful. The other university I need to mention, Madam Chair, is the University of Staffordshire, and that's because one of the things that they are doing is they are leading the country on e-gaming and high-quality creative design work. They have a campus now down in London, as well as the work that they're doing up in Staffordshire, but they recognise that this is a growth industry, and they are working incredibly hard with partners and agencies and with business, and crucially all of this is with business, to make sure that the e-gaming industry in North Staffordshire is vibrant, buoyant, and is suitable for growth. And a lot of the people that they train go on to work for VCCP, which is, again, another organisation I feel that there ought to be name-checked. And they located from London up to Stoke-on-Trent because they knew that the quality of the work and the graduates they could get in Stoke-on-Trent was equal to, if not better than, any they could get out of the London universities. But you also got the quality of life that you get for living in North Staffordshire. And all of this comes together because we are a craft city, and I'm really happy that recently we were awarded World Craft City status to recognise that this craft ceramic work, the creative approach that we have to industry, is in our DNA. It is who we are and it is what we do. And importantly, for our younger generation, it's also about how we translate those opportunities that we know exist now into real opportunity, which is why, Madam Deputy Speaker, having run through all the letters of the alphabet bar 2, I want to move on to a couple of questions to the Minister, if I can. And so firstly it is, whether he will visit and meet some of these organisations so he can see firsthand the excellent work that we're doing in pursuit of not only our own economic development, but in pursuit of the government's own agenda for making sure that creative industries and culture is available to all. Whether he would consider thinking about recognising North Staffordshire as a cultural cluster, something the last government wasn't able to do, but something which I think would give us the standing that we need to demonstrate that we are here for the long run.
Let's get it done.
And could he also potentially speak to his colleagues in the Department of Trade to make sure that as any industrial strategy that comes forward, any industrial strategy that is thinking about growth in the UK, look seriously at creative industries, because the creative industries in Stoke-on-Trent is where our growth can come from. It is where we can make a difference to all those organisations that are currently looking to take that next step to becoming vibrant, big national groups. And would he also speak to his friends in the Education Department to make sure that there is a recognition that at BTEC, at HE, at FE and at A-levels, that we need to make sure we're keeping art and creative subjects on the curriculum, because the pipeline of talent that we are going to need to service the expectations that I know the Minister has are from young people who are already in education. So if I could leave him with those 3 points, I hope he has enjoyed the little tour around my constituency in this debate, and I thank him for listening so diligently.
Hear, hear, hear.
As this House has considered support for the creative industries in Stoke-on-Trent, Minister to respond.
Dame Caroline, it seems a particular joy to have you in the chair today because with your other responsibilities, your other hat on, you have many hats, you obviously have a passionate interest in creative industries, so it's great to have you here. And I might start by not just commending my honourable friend on being elected again, which is a great delight. I think this is a slightly different debate from the debate we might have had if it had been his predecessor. It's good to see him return to the House. But also, he says he hopes that I've enjoyed this tour. Well, the danger is I've enjoyed the tour so much that I might not need to make the actual tour. However, let me just answer the very specific questions first and then make some other comments. First of all, will I visit? Yes, I'm very happy to visit. It's just a question of when we can make that work. I'm in 2 departments, so it would be really good, and I think that this would follow on from what the Council has done locally, if we could try to combine some of the work around tech with some of the work around creative industries. I think of tech as a creative industry, but the Council has led the way in trying to combine those two, so that's one thing. Secondly, will we look at creating a creative cluster? I think he makes a very good case. We're looking at what we need to do about creative clusters the next round of announcements next year, so he's made a very good bid, and my officials are listening very attentively. Oh dear.
Just very briefly, I just think it's important to reiterate my honourable friend's point that there's a groundswell of support in North Staffordshire for such a cluster, so don't just take my honourable friend's word for it, take mine too. And when he talks about combination, I hope that visit will be combined with a visit to Stoke-on-Trent Central and indeed Newcastle Line too.
Well, I'm also the Minister for Tourism, so I feel as if I'm going on a tourism visit. But yes, we'll see what works as the best kind of visit. I'm always a little bit worried about trying to do too many things in one visit, and then you don't really get a proper insight into anything. But we'll certainly look at that. And he makes a good point about creative clusters, and it's a key way of how we can develop a real levelling up strategy, I think. The third question he asked was about whether creative industries will be a key part of an industrial strategy. The government's working on this at pace at the moment, but I can assure him that we are making a very strong case for the creative industries being an absolutely essential part of our industrial strategy. I don't think Britain will have a successful future, economically speaking, let alone sociologically and in many other ways as well, unless that is the case. So I can assure him that it will be. He asked, and his fourth question, I'm answering all these questions directly. It won't catch on, I don't think. The fourth question was whether we'd have conversations with the Department for Education about the curriculum. I won't bother reading out what's been written for me, but yes is the answer, and we already are having those conversations. It's absolutely essential. I mean, it is shocking that we've seen such a decline in the number of students studying exams in music, drama, art, and so on, in the region of 40-50% over the last 14 years. We want to reverse that. It's not going to happen overnight, but we have got to put all of these subjects right back in the heart of the curriculum, and that is an essential part of what we've got to do. Of course.
I thank the Minister for directly responding to my 4 points. I think in my entire time in the last Parliament, that never happened, so the novelty of that is not lost on me. On the point on the curriculum, I mean, I know he will do this, but just so it's on the record, can you make sure that when that conversation happens, there is emphasis on the communities that should have access to that? Because whilst having it on the curriculum works fine, actually in working class communities like mine, often art isn't seen as being for those people. It's not seen for those communities. So, and I know he is a great advocate of communities similar to the ones that we represent. So can you just make sure that the DFE understand that it's not good just having it there. It's got to be actively encouraged in communities that ordinarily wouldn't take it up.
And accessible, yeah.
Well, he makes a very good point. Look, it will be a complete failure for this country if the only place where you can study an art A-level is at Eton, because they've got a good art teacher in a classroom and all the rest of it. Or the only place where you can throw a pot in a school is, in a very middle-class area with lots of middle-class parents. I know this painfully in my own experience. In the Rhondda and Ogmore, it's a vital part of what we do well for the nation, is producing people who have excelled in the creative industries. But often they've had to do that despite not having the opportunities. But locally, but artists like Ernest Saboli and Charles Burton and so on were also involved in teaching locally, and that was an important part of making sure that there was a pipeline for young people who were thinking about art, drama, and so on. And I would also argue, incidentally, that a creative education is a really important part of, it's a force multiplier for all the other aspects of education, because what is it that many employers want? They want somebody who's going to be able to confidently answer the phone. That self-confidence is as likely to come from having done a drama course and learn how to speak publicly and use your voice and project and being part of a team or sing in a choir or play in an orchestra, as it is from being really good at doing your maths exams. So that's the kind of whole attitude I think that we need to adopt. And I don't want to stray too far into the Department for Education's subject areas, but it is just worth pointing out that what is in the national curriculum needs to be something that is advanced in every school, not just some schools. And the structure of education in England is obviously different from it is in Wales, but I'm conscious that these are issues that we need to take forward. Look, the main point, of course, of this, Dame Caroline, is that the creative industries are an enormous part of our cultural and our economic future. They represent £125 billion worth of value to the UK. My honourable friend has already referred to video games. I mean, it's a very fast-growing sector. I visited Ubisoft in Newcastle last week. Amazing, significant investment, large numbers of people going to be working there, and exactly the same is true in Stoke. And that's an industry that's worth something like £7 billion in the UK now, and I confidently expect in the years ahead will grow, not least because it builds on some of the things that we've been exceptionally good at in the UK, producing books which have stories, at telling stories, at creating characters, at music and technological development. And also some of these, I played Assassin's Creed last year, very briefly. I wasn't very good. But what was fascinating to me was it was using archaeologists and historians to make sure that everything that you see on the screen is perfect. And that's a whole nexus of creativity that we want to develop. It's part of the growth in this sector over the last 14 years has been higher than in the rest of the economy, and we know that it will be for the future as long as we make the right investments and we make the right decisions. It's a large employer, some 2 million people employed in the creative industries in the UK, and sometimes this is, I felt over the last few years, there's nobody here to defend themselves, but I did feel as if it was kind of denigrated a bit, like that wasn't a proper job going into the creative industries. Ballerinas were told to retrain and things like that. That is not our attitude. We believe that the creative industries are an absolutely essential part of our future economic growth. He makes a point about levelling up, in a sense. He didn't use the term, and maybe we need to ditch it. But it is an important point that there are 55 clusters, creative industries clusters, and 700 micro clusters around the UK. This is an opportunity to make sure that it happens everywhere, because talent is everywhere, but opportunity isn't. And that's what we really need to change, and that's what our strategy is going to be devoted to. It's not a nice to have, it's absolutely essential to our economic future. He refers to the crucible of creativity being Stoke. I think that's a reference to the burning of the pottery at the beginning, though I've now got Arthur Miller's play going through my head, which slightly ruined my school days. But the pottery, he obviously makes a very important point about World Crafts Council and granting World Craft City status to Stoke. And Clarice Clift died in 1972, and I think when she died, probably lots of people thought that she might have been forgotten, but has now been completely brought back, not least because of some of the things like the Antiques Roadshow, which, you know, again, this is a cycle of creativity where different creative industries feed off each other and enhance each other. He referred to video games. I think it's Junction 15 that won the Emmy for their work on the Beijing Olympics. He's quite right, £7 billion worth of industry. And it's essential here, and I saw this also in Leamington Spa, that working closely with the university, making sure that you have people coming through and that the people who've been to the course at Staffordshire University is world renowned. It's a really important part of making sure that there are people coming through into the industry, because the industry it has vacancies and in particular has vacancies 5 and 10 years in, and that's an important part of the work that we need to do as well. I do want to commend the city on bringing forward a cultural strategy, 22-2028, cross-party, originally introduced by Conservatives and carried forward by Labour. I wish every single local authority in the land, as well as the mayors, many of whom are advancing this, had a similar kind of strategy, because in the end, all of this has to be delivered at local level. And it's building, it's creating that foment of excitement that enables these things to happen. So I commend them. And also, as I said earlier, on the combination of culture and tech. So making sure that you have full fibre rollout across the whole of the city is an important part of making many modern creative industries really flourish. There was referred to the New Vic Theatre at Newcastle. I note that Angela Carter's Companies of Wolves is on at the moment, and I note that the Christmas show is The Three Musketeers. But I think it might be referring to my honourable friend when it says that a spirited country boy comes and arrives in the big city with big dreams. There we are. That's him, I think, to a T. Just final points, Dame Caroline. First of all, creative education, I've made that point. It's absolutely essential to what we need to achieve, and we also want to reform the apprenticeship levy so that it works much better for creative industries, so that you can have portability and flexibility. Thus far, it hasn't really worked. We're working on that. Secondly, I have an ambition that there should be no impediment for somebody from a working class, ordinary background in whatever community in the UK to consider going into the creative industries as a career for them. All too often, the creative industries have almost become a kind of hereditary industry, because you can only afford to start by taking an unpaid post for a year or 2 years, paid for by the bank of mum and dad, or if you have a parent or a family member who's worked in that creative industry. We need to completely change that so that the full talent of the whole of the UK is embraced. And this is my final point, which is just about we need to ensure that the creative industries, the product of them is accessible to all. That's about being able to go to the theatre, going to live art, see art in your streets, have architecture in your city which is beautiful and lifts and inspires. That's the ambition that we have as a government, and Stoke is beautifully exemplifying it in its crucible.
Thank you very much. The question is that this House has considered support for the creative industries in Stoke-on-Trent. As many as are of that opinion say aye. On the contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Order, order. The sitting is suspended until 2:30 p.m.